Hi, I'm Mark on behalf of Astromatrix. Today we are talking about Saturn in Pisces. And now Saturn in Pisces is a big transit. It's a 3-year transit. It's just coming out of Aquarius on March the 7th. And it will be in Pisces for at least 2 years to May 25, where it comes into Aries before coming back later on in that year. So we won't see the end of Saturn in Pisces until 2026. So this is a big shift. It's the last sign of the zodiac, so in the sense that this is a big release cycle for the world in general. On a personal level, it can mean different things. If you have Saturn in Pisces natally, born around 1994, 1995, double check those dates. But yeah, in the app, it will show you on the natal birth chart which house your Saturn is in, which can give you some great information. But also within the monthly horoscope under challenges, you can find where Saturn is now, which house, which is even more important because it allows you to see, even though the energy is very Piscean in nature, where will that focus be personally for you, which can vary from person to person. So for example, if it's in the first house now, there'll be much more kind of work and release on your identity and who you are, what your goals are, your personal goals, and perhaps changing the way you look, the way others maybe perceive you as well. So inherently, what we're talking about today is Pisces and Saturn, and so understanding that in a better way helps us then to grasp what it means more when there's transits, which is also something to take a look at. Do you have planets in Pisces? Do you have Sun in Pisces? That Venus in Pisces, or even Virgo planets where it'll be opposing those planets. So those particular signs will be affected a lot, and in the sense that you can find out as well what those will mean and when they'll be specifically happening, because this is a 3-year event. The transits may be happening next year for you personally over certain planets. So again, look in that monthly horoscope, look at your chart view, you will see the aspects that will be coming and to those personal planets. And in general, if we start talking about what that means, Saturn is the taskmaster. In Greek, the name is Kronos, the father time, and it is in general, in traditional astrology, kind of looked upon negatively, to say the least. It's a kind of a fault of the devil sometimes. A great book actually on Saturn, if you really want to dive deep, is Liz Green, The New Look for the Old Devil, about Saturn. It's a very good book. Highly recommend that, to check that out. But Saturn is this, great teacher. It can be this stern father figure, and it teaches us good lessons. Sometimes we can't learn them, or we don't want to learn them, or we have resistance to them, or we can't feel like it's worth the effort. These kinds of things. This is all Saturn's realm. So as it moves into Pisces, we have this shift from this Aquarian values, which started coincidentally or not in March of 2020, which was the beginning of the pandemic. So moving into Aquarius, huge changes happen very quickly within the world, and we can see even to today what those changes have had. So again, this could end up being very different ways of manifesting itself within the world, but it's definitely still part of a release cycle, part of the end of the zodiac. So things are getting cleaned out of the closet, and it's also a good time to start looking into your closet too. It's like even if you don't have a natal Saturn in Pisces and were born around 1994, where were you at those times? The mid-90s. What were you doing? If you're old enough, these similar themes can crop up. And so it's great to look back at those previous times to see where you are now, and also just in the past few years with your work, with your career, with where you have been, where you put your effort in, in yourself, in others, in work, family? Where has that effort been? And now is a time to reflect on that. With Piscean influences, it's very, Pisces itself is very imaginative, very creative. It's the most spiritual sign of the zodiac. Yeah, so, but it's also the ocean, it's like, it's the fish. It's has no boundary. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And Saturn has a lot of trouble with this, because Saturn is the Capricornian themes of the goat, the mountain. How sure-footed is the goat on the mountain? It can climb, it can go wherever it wants, but how can it go anywhere in the ocean? It can't find the edges, it can't find the corners. So a lot of the times this cycle will be harder to navigate because of that. There'll be more confusion. There'll be more kind of like how strong was your initial foundations. Those foundations might start to really, get muddy and weaker. And so, but the way to do it with Saturn is to just face those challenges head on. The more work we put into Saturn, the more we can get out of it. And sometimes it's not what we really want to get, but it's what we need. So the more we look at it like that, more of an evolutionary approach, a transformational approach, rather than a traditional approach where, okay, this is just bad luck and I'm just going to hide under a blanket, because this is actually the hardest time to do that. If the shadow side of Pisces is the escapist. So in this sense, going into your own world, alcohol, drugs, running away, these kinds of things, not facing reality, staying in some sort of realm where you feel safe, but maybe it's inhibiting your growth, and also you're not giving it as much as yourself to the world as you should be. So these are the big themes of Saturn Pisces. So the people who say perhaps have had that, and I feel have had issues around, say, escapism, and it's time to step up onto the plate and face those issues, and try to transform them and change them slowly but surely. This is the time to do it, and to do it with discipline. Go in all the way. Saturn loves commitment, so up all these spiritual things that you could possibly do that you personally might be drawn to, whether it's yoga, meditation, breath work, even philosophies, but more getting out of the head into the heart. This is really coming into the heart moment, and so allowing that Piscean energy to shine through, but not in a passive sense. The Saturn needs still to do something, so do things regularly. So if you're going to say do meditation, do it every day. At least then Saturn has those times to adjust to have those the foundation, the feeling of some sort of solidity in it. That's super important. And also I feel like because Saturn and Pisces especially is related to 12th house. 12th house is not only spiritual, but related to charity, service, giving up oneself. There's no longer ego within Pisces. So that's why in Saturn and Pisces, it's harder for you to, say, be rewarded, financially, through fame, through these. Sure, it'll happen to some people. It depends also what their transits are, where their houses are. So there's everything is different for each person. But in general, it's time for let's giving back. What have we learnt from these big processes, these past 10 years, whatever. What can you give back? How can you give back? Have you overcome some demons mentally? Have you been able to find ways to share that information to help others? Because this will be a global thing, with mental health getting way more of an issue as it is already, and with the drugs getting more and more toxic. It's a time where we have to step up to the plate. This is a time for where we need to get together as on a deeper level, not so superficially, but really connect with each other through our hearts, and that will allow us to break through these escapist tendencies, these tendencies to be full of pain and not be able to be healed. We really is a great time for healing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a thing that to remember is also to have faith in these dark times. Perhaps you know, it might, where if you're having some transits to, say, your sun in Pisces, things like that, it might feel restricted, it might feel limited, your imagination might be less, you know, the Saturn will be, is very dry, and so you have to push further to get those insights, but that pushing will then allow new ideas and a change and a shift deeper inside you. And so having a faith as well, a belief, keeping on to that when times can get dark, when there's less light, is really a huge part of dealing with this Saturn and Pisces energy. So, and each little bit we do every day accumulates. You know, Saturn is like that. You know, Saturn builds this mountain of nothing, of just pebbles, which eventually turns into a mountain. So, obviously, with Pisces, that energy is different with the ocean, but we can also absorb it and learn from it. Our boundaries will perhaps become less distinct, so that's something to also work on, understand about your boundaries, where they are with yourself, with other people, especially if you have issues with that before, so that will come to the forefront as well. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all we have for Saturn Pisces. Definitely we have bigger shifts coming along with Pluto and Aquarius as well in March in 2023, so subscribe if you want to make sure you catch that video. We also have articles in the app which go into details, as well as, you know, your personal transits. So well, what we'll do now quickly is tarot reading, just a few cards on Saturn and Pisces right here. So we'll just see what kind of energies is coming up, the themes for the collective. So first up we have the Fool. Yeah, so the Fool, that's interesting. Like the Fool is the first card. It's card 0. It's more associated with Uranus, which, funnily enough, does also co-rule Aquarius with Saturn. You know, it's a very bright card. It's, you know, a very heart-open card. It's a card where we just want to dive in, and I feel like with Saturn in Pisces, it is time to really dive into ourselves, dive in and to trust. You know, there's an immense amount of trust that comes with this card, with the archetype of the Fool. You know, jumping just straight off the cliff and not even thinking or worrying where that's going to head. You know, it's an interesting energy to have. It's definitely something I personally have been, you know, delving into recently, about trust, about faith, which I was also mentioning in the video. So it's definitely like having faith is a theme of this next cycle. I feel like some people, past year, it's been quite difficult, and obviously not for everyone, but you know, faith kind of keeps that hope. It keeps this kind of ability to see that light. There is that sun there. You know, times will change. Even if times are dark now, this is a cycle, and the cycle will end. That's the best thing we can learn from, one of the best things from astrology is that, you know, nothing is forever. Everything shifts, everything changes. So, you know, learn to change with it, adapt with it, and part of that energy is the Fool, because the Fool just lets everything go. It doesn't, you know, he doesn't have any bags, he doesn't have any baggage, he doesn't have any past. He's living the now, and, you know, how do we do that, you know, better? You know, how do we let go of this past that doesn't exist, the future that we don't need to worry about because it could go in any direction? So that's that direction. That's the Fool. So next card, let's see what we got. Oh, we got Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups. So this is a very watery element card. Water of water. And yeah, obviously Pisces, water. So yeah, I mean, it's Queen of Cups is again a very heart-based card. You know, we have this on the side here. We have some flowers. Looking into the cup. You know, how can we fill this cup? How can we add to this the abundance of not just us for ourselves, but for people around us, for the gardens, for the plants, for the nature, for the people. You know, how do we make that grow better? You know, how do we give back to that? You know, is, can we be of service to other people that need it? Times are tough for some people in the world today. There are some, very dark places in the world. There's also very bright spots. So, using when we are at a place where we mature, which is the Queen, we can then give back. We can really feel what we can do to help others in any way we can, using our gifts mainly, but in all honesty, it's very personal how we can give back. For some people it could be financial, but in this particular case, especially with the Queen of Cups, it is very emotional. So the emotions are there. The emotions are very strong. It's the ocean. It's like it goes on for so long. You can be on a boat and all you see is the ocean. All it's just encompassing and going deep down to areas we cannot see. So, how deep can we go? How deep can we see through meditation? What's there? What treasures are there? What beauty lies there? And how can we then provide that for the people around us, the people that we love, and increasing that circle of love. So yeah, Queen of Cups. So the next final card we have is Page of Pentacles. So this is an interesting card. It's Earth. So in this sense, we have this Earth of Earth, which is an interesting combination to have, considering we just had water with water. This is again a very bright card. And I feel like, we see in this card here, we don't see clearly, there's a goat there too. So that signifies this Saturnian Capricorn themes. There's also a pig, so there's this more of a farm kind of a symbolism, and the person in the picture is wearing boots, kind of very down to earth, practical, wants to learn, curious, open, looking for new ways to do things. And with the goat has actually some domestication, so so that perhaps there's being some milk produced, cheese produced, but also it's a goat that, so in the sense that the animal side of ourselves is somewhat matured and tamed. It's not wild. This is not a wild card. And I feel like perhaps sometimes maybe what this energy is telling us is to kind of work on how we can increase the maturation of our own desires and instincts, but specifically if they're animalistic, very raw, they can be very emotive, and sometimes that can lead us into a not so good direction. So yeah, this card definitely shows us that we should be more practical with what we can do, but also open-minded, looking for new ways to do things, but getting our feet dirty. This time may be a bit muddy. Saturn and Pisces is not firm ground. So we have to be open. We have to be kind of adaptable to understand. Pisces is mutable, so we need to be mutable. We have to be adaptable to this energy, adaptable to the way we think, the way we do things, the way we act. This is a time of being able to give back and learn new ways to give back, and it's exciting as much as it is daunting. So yeah, I do wish everyone very, very prosperous and healthy, more than anything, Saturn in Pisces, because that's something also to make sure you look for, is making sure that we keep ourselves well nourished during this time. Yeah, so